Joining me now, all together, here in Washington, my colleagues, Jose Diaz-Balart, Katy Tur, and Chris Jansing. And it's so great to all be together because we pass each other in the hallways, but now we're all in one place, and the most important night of the year in Washington and for the country, really. You can talk about the speech not being all that important, but this is really the informal kickoff of the president's re-election campaign. And just a word here on foreign policy, which I do, as all of you do, but I do it 24/7, the China balloon. And the fact that, you know, the senior general of Northcom has acknowledged that there were previous sightings, not just the three during the Trump years that we talked about this week, but we have new footage now today of this search continuing. I'm told there's some choppy waters, which is slowing them down a bit, but it's a smaller debris field than they initially had estimated. They even went to NASA to get estimates of what would be the dimensions of the debris field. And NASA had those dimensions of a balloon as compared to a Navy pilot crashing, a plane crashing into the water, which is obviously a different impact, different debris field. So they went to great effort. This has been a Coast Guard and Navy operation, but as the divers continue their search, and the FBI already looking at the forensics, you know, just what was China looking for? What is their technology? Is this just the same old balloons, or are they launching something completely new? They have spy planes, you know, satellites rather overhead. We had U-2 spy planes, you know, surrounding it, circling it. So we did extract a lot of data on what was on that, but they want to get the payload. And that's their biggest defense against all this Republican criticism, you know, that they should have shot it down sooner. If you shot it down over Montana, not only would there could have been, you know, civilian casualties hitting a school, hitting a church, hitting a farmhouse, but you would not have had the possibility of retrieving the payload as you do over water. But Chris Jansing, all the domestic concerns, the biggest problem this president has in the poll numbers is his approval rating is low, and 2/3 of people do not think he's handling the economy well, even though the recovery is far better. But let's talk about police and gun reform.
This is one area where I think the White House believes that they can have an emotional touch point, right? There's a belief that the call that the president is going to make can touch a nerve with the American people who have all seen this video of Tyree Nichols being beaten to death. His mother, his stepfather, they're going to be sitting with the First Lady. And remember at the funeral when she said, if you don't do this, you will have blood on your hands. This being for Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Now, we all know what a long shot that is. The president is going to be looking out on a divided Congress. And there's more, really. 89% of the American people think that their police departments could use some change. But when you look at, is it a top priority? There's a new poll that shows only 29% of Republicans think this is a top priority, and not even a majority of independents. So that is what he's going to be facing. It is a priority for the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus. They had a meeting with the president last week. They hope he'll talk about some other possibilities, including executive actions. And you're going to be seeing a button that members of the CBC will be wearing that says 1870. That is the first known instance of police killing an black man, a free black man. His name was Henry Truman in Philadelphia. So they want to really push that home. And on the other hand, gun reform, the president has a chance to tout some progress, right, with the historic gun legislation, probably the most effective or at least the most sweeping in 3 decades. But he's going to push for the assault weapons ban, something he has been trying to do time and again. Public support has waned. It was 65%, back in 2019. It's down to 47% in a poll in the last few weeks. So I think this is going to be a question of how do you take what are emotional issues. Brandon Say is going to also be with the First Lady. He's the one who wrestled the gun away from the gunman at the Lunar New Year mass shooting that killed 12 people in California. Can he make a moment? That is going to be his challenge, and get people motivated to care about these issues in the way they did in the immediate aftermath of some of these events.
The GOP has said that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is a non-starter.
Yeah.
Completely not going to go there. I wonder, does the White House understand that? Do they recognize that? And are they ready to try to work with House Republicans on this very divisive issue to try and find some common ground? I mean, Jim Jordan said that there's no federal law that can change what's happening.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the White House is going to say is that, and has said, is that you have to start somewhere, that the president does want to negotiate. How far they're willing to go to get things done is a question. But there really is a belief with many of the activists I talk to that if you can keep that public pressure up, you can keep the motivation going. They'll tell you the civil rights reform didn't happen over the course of days or months or weeks. It took years. And to keep it in the zeitgeist is something that's important to them.
Jose, you know, you were out in Monterey Park,
Yeah,
and
just
you
thinking about
know
that.
how people were reacting, to say nothing of Uvalde, where you also were. You have on police reform, you have a senator who's now likely running for president, Tim Scott, and qualified immunity was the break point of those negotiations.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about that, Andrea, and it's important because when we're talking about issues and what the president can and can't say, is there any bipartisan efforts that could come forward? I don't see how. I mean, in issues of vast support by the American people, something like DACA. You know, deferred action for kids who arrive here through no choice of their own.
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, and yet nothing can get done. And so I think, and I do think about that hero of Monterey Park, you know, who took that weapon away from that person, but he already killed 12 people. Yeah. And I think of Uvalde, you know, the 19 children and 2 teachers that were killed. It's just like this goes on and on and on, and yet there's no possibility of getting any kind of agreement to deal with this. I mean, the bloodletting continues every single day.
I thought after Sandy Spring, when Barack Obama came into the briefing room and began crying, I thought after Mother Emanuel, rather Sandy Hook that was, I'm sorry, in Newtown, when, you know, he was so emotional when we lost 20 children and teachers, and it's just...
And it happens. And Andrew, I have a question because I've been wanting to talk to you about it, but this spy balloon that China sent, was it a spy balloon or also a trial balloon? In other words, you know, we
Both.
see... And we see the one, very similar one was flying over Latin America. Colombia just talked about that.
Right. And also we now learn that they have gone frequently to probe along the coast.
So what is
this? Is the first time it went all across the states.
What is it? Is it a new phase?
That's what they're trying to determine. Is this a new phase? Yes. They are sending more out, and they are more competitive. And what they're trying to learn is, was there new equipment on it? Because there is a suggestion, not on this one, that there are these balloons that can send out small drones that can do then intercepts, all kinds of intercepts that satellites can't.
Let me ask you this. I had a former CIA China analyst on yesterday in the Bush administration, and they were saying that they're not entirely sure that President Xi Jinping knew that this was happening, that this could have been an intelligence freelance on the part of Chinese intelligence. From our intelligence understanding of how it works in China, I mean, is that even possible? Because when I think about it, I can't imagine Xi not knowing about anything.
The military actually is looking at this very closely, as are our intelligence analysts, because they come up with a plan, I was told, at the highest levels. They come up with, from the highest levels of U.S. officials, they come up with a plan every year for X number of 100 balloon launches. And they've been in 5 continents. And a certain number are targeting the United States. And until now, it's been coastal, as far as we know. But now they are reviewing, they're going back and reviewing to see whether, in fact, some of those UFOs or aerial events that pilots have been sighting in various places in the country were actually balloons before this. So they are now saying, as the head of Northcom said yesterday, we have to do a better job of spotting these events when they happen. We have not had situational awareness. So that is one thing that they're working on. But one of the real things, to answer your question, is that it is quite possible and even likely that the military came up with a plan and at their mid-levels had dates that did not get briefed at all to the foreign ministry or to the president's office that it was coming days before the summit.
Well, Americans are
Blinken.
riveted by that story. The question is, can the president answer their question?